AskReddit by him nobody. How do those unemployed people who travel all around the world do it? If you are willing to set aside things like health insurance and quality housing and quality food, you can travel the world surprisingly cheaply. It's also possible to do odd jobs to get a bit of money here and there. Most of the time though, it's one of a couple of things. 1. Rich kids. Their parents are funding them. 2. Rich family. Someone other than their parent is funding them. 3. People who work high-paying but seasonal jobs with long breaks. Think the crab catchers from Alaska type positions. They can make a year's salary in only a chunk of the year and then travel the rest of the year. I did know someone who worked as a high-end waiter on Cape Cod. They worked every day during the season but they were able to travel with no expense spared the rest of the year. I'm from NZ. Doing a big overseas experience is part of our culture. Oz is too. You have to save hard for a year or so to save the $2K flights, work visas and enough $sign to cover basic expenses when you land. Cut expenses to a bare minimum. I walked everywhere, shared a room in a flat, ate toast a lot, but had some amazing experiences. Some jobs to do while you travel: work on yachts, ski fields, Camp America, bars, tourist places, temping in office jobs, etc. There are other options like woofing. You stay on farms for free, you pay for your food and accommodation by working 2-3 hours per day. I met a lot of Kiwis who were doing that on almost every continent. Only native English speaker I could not understand was a rural farmer with the thickest accent. Traveling modestly is cheaper than living in many US cities. If you don't have rent, mortgage, health insurance, tuition, property taxes to pay, your expenses can be surprisingly low. This is me. My monthly expenses are well under $1,000 closer to like $700, and this includes health insurance, occasional hotel nights and a good bit of gasoline consumption. Met a 30-year-old Swedish hippie type in Australia. Carried a traditional type of drum, had dreadlocks, and looked like he got all of his clothes in Thailand. We became good friends. His father had passed away and left him about the equivalent of $30 million USD in cash and properties all over Europe. His grandfather had started a pharma company which was bought out. I have a lot of respect for those kind of people. They know what's important in life. None of these luxury items, cars, fancy clothes and whatever. They just travel the world and have fun. Experiences and freedom is the most valuable thing you can have, not money. Unfortunately, you need money to travel the world though. Trust fund kids. Or debt. They have a lower standard of living. If you need to take 4 suitcases, it ain't for you lol. Deleted. Wow. There are a lot of people who think only the rich can do this. I traveled a lot when I took a year off work. I lived off my savings and did budget travel to areas where the dollar is strong. Reddit people seem really naive tbh. Spirit Airlines OBV. Deleted. A lot of short-sighted answers in here chopping it up to trust fund babies, and I don't think that's a fair representation. I can only speak anecdotally, but the majority of long-term travelers I've met have all saved up for these trips. Yes, they are currently unemployed, but they saved a lot and sacrificed a lot to be able to do what they want. Someone in my family works in tech, think fong, and lives comparatively like a hobo. They save every dollar they can and every few years they take a year off to travel. They are in a niche market of tech and have great job security for when they want to pick work up again. Rich family or spouse. Or they aren't actually unemployed, they are just an influencer of some sort. So, trust fund kid, like the first comment said. I have a friend super broke and moves all over. Picks up jobs here and there. She is 40, has no steady job, Has no residence. She somehow gets things given to her. Uses lots of community support online for free stuff. Honestly, I have no clue, but they are literally floating through life on the backs of others. We've talked with her about what she is going to do when she is older. She has no idea. Had some older friends like this when I was younger, self-proclaimed hippies that didn't believe in capitalism. They are now in retirement age and basically 100% fucked, zero retirement or savings, basically homeless. One is living off her kids. It's nearly impossible to talk to them now because they're bitter and full of regret, but still won't acknowledge the position they're in is entirely their fault. Someone else is always to blame. The US has very high cost of living. You can get a nice apartment with utilities in Thailand for like $400 a month. If you have savings and no income, being in other countries is cheap living. You can get a furnished Airbnb in Tokyo with all utilities for like $900 a month. And that is both cheaper and also way more fun than being unemployed in the US. Trustafarians. World travel doesn't need to be expensive so long as you're prepared for that travel to be really uncomfortable. Remote work, and mostly if not rich then white folks in Southeast or South Asia or Africa, but on tight budgets. I can tell you about Goa and Castle, hashish capital of India. Once these Israeli kids are done with the mandatory military service, they often come to India for a year or two at a time. Most suffer PTSD or are just trying to numb themselves. Castle used to be a village but now has cafes with menus in Hebrew, as well as road and rave party signs in Hebrew. It was pretty cool in the 90s but is turning pretty shitty now. I did this with my wife. We traveled for 9 months without working. We are not trust fund kids and didn't get help from anyone. Here's how. 1. We both had relatively high paying jobs to start. 2. We saved a ton of money over the span of like 5 years. We did this by 1. Driving 10-plus-year-old cars, 2. Living with a roommate for a year, and 3. Not really buying many things. 3. Selling our condo and cars before traveling to avoid any upkeep expenses. 4. Paying for temp health insurance while we traveled, which is cheaper but excludes all preventative care. 5. Lots of planning to optimize cost. 6. Luck number 1. High paying jobs is lucky no matter what people say. You can work hard and be smart and still not get paid well, lose your job. We also were lucky to be and stay healthy during our travel. After the 9 months we both re-entered the workforce again. Did you know that it's possible to be unemployed but still have money? Travel companion. A family member spent his late teens very early 20s bouncing around hostels and basically traveling for the cost of the cheapest plane tickets he could find. He visited 30+ countries. Once he had those experiences under his belt, he advertised himself as a travel companion and AMP guide. Typically, his clients are single, inexperienced travelers. The fees cover his expenses plus his time. He is booked out through 2025. When he has extensive downtime, he picks up work in restaurants and bars. It's something of a gypsy life, but it seems to work for him. He isn't starving and is pretty carefree. But he's in his mid-40s and never married, not settled down. Probably wouldn't be a good fit for anyone who's tied down to a job or a partner. A lot of them were simply previously employed, then saved up money. Most of them are like this. A lot of the replies are lacking any imagination. People have been doing this years before the internet, and it's entirely possible to save up for a year or two backpacking around poorer parts of the world. If you mean the various YouTube bloggers, they get their money from ad revenue on their content. It's technically their job. Trust funds. Rich parents, or they live the hobo life. The people I know traveling saved up some money from a corporate job they hated, then hit their tipping point and quit or started doing side gigs while traveling. You don't need a huge following to make $1,000 or $2,000 per month. That plus savings can go a long way if you're being frugal and depending on the countries. I'm part of the exact sub that caters to that kind of people in our travel. I also asked the same question and the usual response, outside of being rich, was they saved a lot of money, $80k up, and fairly confident in getting rehired. Can work remotely, so they may only appear unemployed. They also spend the bulk of that in countries where the exchange rate favors them. If you earn $, probably half the world, on top of sleeping in cheap hotels or hostels. There's also this thing where you get to live for free in exchange of caring for someone else's house or pet's plants while the owners are away. It's called house sitting. Then, some go the charity volunteer route. They enlist in organizations that travel to certain places for free with the intent of helping poor communities. Family money.